everyone, it's me, Aaron, Professor Thorgy, your guide to all things geeky, and welcome to another episode of Comic Class, the show every single Wednesday on this channel where we just geek out about comic books. And today is a very important day for us comic book fans, because today is the day that DC puts out a book that they have been talking about for the longest time. It's one of their most anticipated books. I've mentioned it numerous times on this channel. People have been concerned, people have been excited, nobody knows what it's going to mean, but today is the day that finally comes out. I am, of course, talking about Scooby-Doo Apocalypse. I'm obviously joking. We are clearly going to be talking about DC Rebirth. Although before I get off of this book, typically I only talk about books that I love here on this show because I like to be positive, but before we geek out about Rebirth, and we will be geeking out about it, I have to get this off my chest. One of us at my store had to read this book so that one of us would know what it was about, just in case someone asked, and I drew the short straw, and oh my god, it's so bad. Oh my god. It's written by a guy I like even, so I don't want to badmouth it, but wow, there is nothing to like in this book. Holy cow. Fudge that thing. Trying to cut back on my cursing, but no, seriously, fudge that book. It's terrible. Oh, okay, now let me wash that taste out of my mouth with some DC Rebirth goodness. Holy cow, DC Rebirth is out. And today we're going to talk about what it could mean, all the changes it makes to DC Comics, and I know a lot of people out there have not gotten the chance to read it yet, so here's what we're going to do. Just like when I reviewed Secret Wars, I'm going to have the spoiler-free part of the show, and then we're going to have the spoiler part of the show. The spoiler part of the show comes towards the end. If you want to jump right to that, you can click right there. I'll give you guys some time. But for everybody out there who does not want to be spoiled, we're going to, of course, start by talking about the spoiler-free stuff. And I will give you my impressions, my interpretation, and get into as much of it as I can without ruining anything for you guys. All right, everybody ready? All right, cool, let's begin. Okay, now the first thing that we have to talk about is that people have been wondering this entire time, is this an actual reboot? Are they going to pull another Flashpoint, another Crises, in which they just go in and say, okay, everything in the past has changed, there's a brand new continuity, the things that you just read don't count anymore, and people have been torn on that. Because on the one hand, people are like, I don't want them to do it again, I just got used to this universe. But on the other hand, people are like, yeah, I just got used to this universe, and I don't like it as much as the old universe. Can we have that old universe back? So let me just go ahead and say, this is not a reboot. Everything you have read in the New 52 is still canon. All of that has happened. This is more of a mission statement. This is more of an address of the problems of the New 52. Because Jeff Johns, he is a guy who loves old school comic books. He loves hope. He loves love. He loves legacy characters. He loves superheroes being superheroes. He loves books that are upbeat, which is a weird thing to say about a guy who has someone get disarmed in almost every single book he writes. Yeah, that happens a lot in his series. But okay, this book is a narrator, and I will not say who that narrator is, although I will admit I figured it out by page 2, and they go ahead and reveal it to you by page 5, because they're like, we know that you know, come on, let's not hide this. But for anybody out there who wants to be completely surprised by it and does not want any spoilers, I will not say who it is. But it is this narrator basically jumping from one location in this DC universe to another, and as they're jumping around, they're basically pointing out all the problems of the New 52. They're basically saying, listen, this Earth is great, but there's something missing. It's missing love, it's missing hope, it's so much darker. These characters, they aren't connected, they don't have the friendships, they're not as experienced. And as he's talking about this, he's jumping around, and you start to see that changing. And it's one of those things in which it's like, okay, is it just changing and coming about because it is, or is this narrator actually changing that? Are they somehow bringing little bits of the old DC comics here to this reality? And as they're jumping around, they are slowly changing things for the better. It's one of those things that we can interpret, and we'll get into that more in the spoiler part of the show. But basically, this was a mission statement. It was Jeff Johns coming in here and saying, here are the problems with the New 52, and here's me coming in and step by step fixing that. Like he talked about the lack of legacy characters and the lack of a history to this reality. And then sure enough, you get like an entire part of this book that's just called Legacy, Chapter 2, Legacy, and is nothing but all these characters getting legacy characters. I will not spoil who pops up, but there were some great moments in there. Hell, there was a moment in which I was like, there's no way that they can do this without a complete reboot. And yeah, they kind of figured out a way to do it without a complete reboot. It was awesome. And one of the best things about this issue is the meta commentary. It's not that Geoff Johns is just talking about this fictional universe out there. He is very clearly talking about DC Comics as a whole. He's talking about the people who have been running DC. And I will get into the specifics of that in the spoiler section. But as you read it, you would have to be crazy to not be able to go, oh, you're talking about that guy. Okay, I see. In fact, I don't even know how they let him get away with this. I am amazed that Dan DiDio and Bob Harris and Jim Lee basically just went over and sat in the corner and was like, we know what we did. They just went over there and was like, okay, you just fix it. And it was like, yeah, you go and sit in that corner. This is basically Geoff Johns, the adult of DC Comics, returning and going, what did you do to my house? And the last thing that I will say during this spoiler-free section is that I really thought that Rebirth, this giant 84-page issue, which, goddamn, 84 pages for $2.99. Man, Marvel needs to learn a lesson from you guys. But I thought all of Rebirth would be this one thing that would come in, change the DC universe around, and it would all be in this one issue. And as you read it, you realize, no, it's not. This is the beginning of something. And I know that we're all getting tired of crossovers, we're all getting tired of big epic events, but I let this one pass because, like I said, A, it's important. The DC universe kind of did need something about this, and there's a great meta commentary to it that I will get into in the spoiler section of the entire premise of what will one day be this big crossover. But also, Geoff Johns is a guy who plays for the long game. Like, with Marvel, it's like, okay, here's the setup, 2 weeks later, big epic event that changes everything. 2 weeks after that big epic event happens, we do another setup, then another big epic event comes 2 weeks later. It's like, oh my god, it's just too much. Geoff Johns sets stuff up 5 years in advance. So when I was reading this, I was like, okay, we got like another 5 years before this fully plays out. So, don't get me wrong, after I read it, I was like, I want this now. I want to know what the heck is going on. I want you to explore it. I don't want you to drop anything. I want you to keep writing this. But at the same time, we just got this new take on this universe. I'm glad it's going to be many years before we see the next giant crisis event, which this does look like it's going to be some kind of a crisis event. And of course there's a big surprise at the end, but there's no real point in me talking about it in the spoiler-free section, because in order to go into detail, you would have to read it to actually understand it, so just wait for the spoiler part of the show. But I will say that when I first read that giant surprise, I didn't know how to feel about it, but then I talked with some people about it, and then I went back and reread some stuff. I was like, oh, this actually makes a lot of sense. And then when I thought about the commentary behind it all, I realized this is actually brilliant. This is actually exactly what this needs to be, and it makes total sense. So I was totally okay with it. So yeah, that's it. In the end, this was not what I expected it to be. I expected it to be kind of like a soft reboot. I expected them to kind of come in here and just go, listen, New 52, it's over with. I expected this to be all one big contained storyline. It's not. It's the beginning of something larger. Everything in the New 52 is still canon. It's just a mission statement. It's someone coming out here and saying, this is what we need to fix with DC Comics, and in this one issue, I'm going to fix as much of it as I possibly can, and that's the mission statement of Rebirth. Going in and fixing all the things that were wrong with DC Comics. And yeah, it did its job, and it got me excited. It makes me want to read the rest of these books that are coming out, and it makes me just want to read DC Comics again. And that was the entire point of this. However, I will say that as I read this, I was like, yes, DC Comics is back. And then I had that brief moment in which I was like, no, it's not that they're back, it's that Geoff Johns is back. Geoff Johns is one of the biggest DC Comics fans out there, and he's not one of these fans who's like, oh yeah, I get DC Comics, and then they don't get DC Comics. No, Geoff Johns actually gets DC Comics. So if there's anybody out there who I could see having a break glass in case you need to fix all of DC Comics' plan, it is him. So as I read this, I was like, this is the perfect guy to fix everything. But I do have to worry about everybody else who is about to come on board and take over these books. Geoff Johns threw an amazing spiral halfway down the field. Now these guys just have to catch it and get it the rest of the way. That's it. That's all that has to happen. I just hope that they don't fumble it. All those sports metaphors worked, right? I know nothing of sports. But okay, that was it for the spoiler-free section. If you guys have not read it yet, you do not want to be spoiled. You somehow avoided all the spoilers online. Seriously, I gotta rant about that for a second here. Someone came out and spoiled it on Reddit, so DC said, well, if it's already on Reddit, then I guess everybody else out there should know anyways. Do you know what percentage of people don't go on Reddit? I don't go on Reddit. Seriously, I go on comic book resources. Do not look at Reddit and go, well, someone spoiled it there. Hey, comic book resources, post this all across your headlines. No, okay? Somehow I managed to avoid all those spoilers. I had to do a total internet shutdown for 24 hours. And yeah, it was worth it. It was worth not being spoiled. So if you guys have somehow managed to not have this spoiled for you yet, do not watch the rest of this video. I mean, if you want to, like, mute it and keep it going in the background, then that's great, because that gives me more money. But do not watch the rest of this video. But for everybody else who has read this and wants to watch the spoiler section, here we go. Wally. Oh my gosh, Wally is back. Okay, let's go ahead and address a couple of the things about Wally's return. The first thing that I gotta say is that one of my biggest problems with the New 52 is that it came in, erased all this continuity, changed all these characters, created a brand new universe, and we didn't get to say goodbye to any of them. No character got an ending. No character got that issue in which they were able to go, alright, well, here's what it means to be me, and here's the importance of everything that I've done, and here's me looking back at everything. Except for Batgirl. Batgirl got an ending, and it was amazing. But aside from that, nobody really got that ending that they deserved. So this issue, when Wally was basically thinking back on his life, thinking about his wife, thinking about Barry, it was like, this is the ending that we need for this character. And I believed it. I believed that he was going to just fade away. I did. I believed that this was it. This was the end of him, and this was kind of like our way of saying goodbye to the old DC universe, because we never got that. We never got to say goodbye to them. But that moment in which he was about to fade away and he was having that tearful moment with Barry, and pretty much everybody I know almost teared up at that moment. I even got a little bit choked up at when Barry just uttered Wally under his breath and reached out and grabbed him. My heart jumped. I seriously was like, oh my god, hold on, this is not where I thought I was going to go. And when he pulled it back, it's like, that was the perfect metaphor for, no, the stuff that made DC Comics work is still alive. We're going to grab it and pull it into this universe, because one of the reasons why people have been so upset about what happened to Wally West is that he kind of was the metaphor, he kind of was the symbol for DC Comics. I know that everybody's like, no, Batman's the symbol, Superman's the symbol. I mean that character that you can point to and go, that is the representation of this universe. Because Barry, he started off as a kid. Kid superheroes, fun. One of the things DC Comics was known for. He grew up, fell in love, and got married. Love, another thing DC Comics is known for. He also was a legacy character. Legacy characters. Flash, part of this huge line and family of characters. Another thing that DC Comics was known for. And he was a fun, upbeat guy who was very hopeful. Hope, the thing that DC was known for. He kind of was that avatar for DC Comics. So a lot of people have been like, come on man, I grew up with this guy. I watched him grow. I watched him change. I got attached to him. So he was the perfect guy to be that one that you grab and pull back in. Him and the old Superman, who is also back. That is such a weird thing that basically they went, okay, here were the two characters that really worked from the old universe and really were the symbol of everything we were missing. Let's just pick him up and bring him into this reality. But okay, they grab Wally, they bring him back in, and when he comes back in, he is now younger, just like the rest of the DC universe. He's about 20 or whatever the age of the other Titans is. And basically, they say that he altered reality so that now he did exist in this universe forever, just people forgot about him. He was part of that original Teen Titans team, the one that people also forgot about, which makes me wonder, how many other secrets is DC holding on to? How many other, like, things from the old universe that we loved are they going like, no, it was here, just, you know, evil wizards made a curse and people forgot something. It was always here. It was always here. By the way, Justice Society. They said the Justice Society existed. That's awesome! I have nothing else to add to that, but that's awesome. I really hope that they give the Justice Society a book. I don't care if it was set back in World War II when they were all young heroes, or I don't care if it's set today and they're all old guys who retired and now they're getting back into it and they're training the next generation of heroes, just like the old Justice Society book. Either one of those, I'm totally down with. I'm just happy the Justice Society still existed. why the hell did they get rid of that in the first place? That was dumb. But Wally is now back in here, and this is really important because, like I said, that was the one thing that people were still holding on to from the old universe. Is like, we all love Wally. Why did you get rid of him? And I have to address the two Wallys in the room right now, because, as I said, they have created a Wally West for the New 52, and this has been a very divisive issue. In fact, I'll admit, I myself have been very torn on this new Wally West. On the one hand, now he is getting to that point in which he is being more like the Wally that I like. He's being more hopeful, he's being more fun, he's becoming a fan of the Flash, and he's loving this whole idea of being a superhero. It's like, okay, those are a lot of things I like about Wally. But when he was first introduced, he was like some punk kid going around spray painting with no hope at all. And I was like, oh god, that's not Wally. It's not Wally at all. I don't want that. And I know that there are also a lot of people out there, and I have to bring this up, but there are a lot of people out there who are just upset because they made Wally West black. I don't care about that. There is nothing about the character of Wally West that I absolutely loved that says he has to be white. There's nothing about his character that is defined as, oh, I'm a white guy. No, he can be anybody. In fact, Wally was a very relatable character, and a relatable character should be able to be any race or gender, because everybody should be able to look at them and go, okay, I can see part of myself in that character. So yeah, I'm totally fine with them changing his race. I just really hated that they made him some punk kid. But as I said, they were slowly getting to that point in which he was becoming the Wally West I like. But when this new Wally came in, or the old Wally, man, this is gonna get really confusing. When Earth 1 Wally came in, no, this is Earth 1 Wally, god damn it. When Red-Headed Wally came in, and he came in, it kind of dawned on me, that was the other thing that I was missing from this new Wally. It's that he was a kid again. And I like the history behind Wally. And sure, now that he is in this New 52 universe, the history that I like about him is gone, but he has now existed for, 4 or 5 years like all the other teenage superheroes, so he does have some kind of a history built up. He does have friendships with all these other characters. He does have a relationship with them. Like when I saw that New 52 Wally was going to be on the Teen Titans, I was like, alright, he's gonna finally be on the Teen Titans. But then kind of dawned on me, it's like, yeah, but he's not gonna be friends with Dick Grayson, and he's not gonna be friends with Aqualad and all the other characters that he grew up with. Oh yeah, well, I guess he'll start some new adventures. But now I've got that Wally who was friends with Dick Grayson and was friends with all those original Titans, and now we can have this new Wally who gets to make his own adventures. And that's the other great thing about this, is that this Wally now gets to be his own man. Because everybody has been pointing at this Wally West going, oh, well, it's not the Wally that I know. It's not the Wally that I love from the old universe. I guess one day he could be. I guess if I wait another decade, then he'll have that history built up, and hopefully he'll, meet all the same characters that he met before. But now, you don't have to look at him like that. Now he can actually be his own character. He can totally have his own adventures, and you don't have to look at him and go like, yeah, but where's Linda? Why are you not dating Linda right now? Or, why are you not friends with the other Titans? You can look at him and go, okay, you are totally your own character. That's awesome. But speaking of the other legacy characters, I love that we got Aqualad in there, and not just like the old Aqualad. I love that we got new Aqualad, the one from Young Justice, because that was one of the things that frustrated me the most about the New 52, is that they just introduced this new character. People were liking him, and then it was like, yeah, no, you're gone forever now. Gone. We got him back. That's awesome. We also got Ryan Choi again. Yes, the new Adam is back, and he has an amazing introduction. I love that he was just watching this video from Ray Palmer, and Ray's like, nah, trust me, I gave you a size-changing belt. I'm lost in the time stream. Come back and try and find me. You're gonna get in way over your head, so good luck, kid. And they just left there like, ah. It's like, that to me is Ryan Choi. Ryan Choi to me was the guy who was always way in over his head. And then we also got to see Jaime Reyes and Ted Kord together, and I love that. I love that, like, one page that we got them just playing off each other, but also Ted Kord was awesome in that. Like, they nailed Ted Kord in that. Aside from the fact that they made him super buff and hunky. Ted Kord to me was always like the middle-aged, kind of out-of-shape guy in the Justice League. But this Ted Kord, he is younger, and he's hot. Let's just go ahead and say it. Let's call it like it is. That was a very attractive Ted Kord that they created. But they nailed his personality. Because Ted Kord was a guy who just loved life and loved going out there on adventures. And seeing him there, just building the giant bug ship And Jaime's like, why do we need this? We don't need a giant floating bug. He's like, come on, man, why do you not know why we need a giant floating bug? This is gonna be awesome. Let's go out on adventures. And then when Dr. Fate shows up and tries to give him this warning, like this very ominous warning that should have anybody scared, is like, this is not extraterrestrial, it's magic. Anybody else should be like, oh my gosh. Ted Kord's just like, magic? Oh my gosh. And I'm like, that's Ted Kord. You got it. You nailed it in one. So I love the fact that we are now going to have Jaime Reyes, and hopefully Jaime Reyes will be like Jaime Reyes. He will be like the one in the pre-New 52, and we're also going to have him teaming up with Ted Kord, and it just seems like, it has me so excited for the new Blue Beetle series. This entire book was nothing but getting me excited for all these new series, and I might be more excited for that Blue Beetle one than any other one right now, honestly. But okay, I'm geeking out too much. I'm having too good of a time. I gotta calm down, I gotta focus. Alright, like I said, one of the best things about this issue was the meta commentary. It was the fact that this was Geoff Johns making commentary on everything that was wrong with the New 52, and he did not hold back. He was the voice of the audience. He was coming in here and going, listen, it's darker. People are not friends with each other. People who used to be seasoned veterans are now novices. They don't know what they're doing. We had 10 years stolen from us by some dark, evil force. And it's still out there. And it could strike again at any moment. The moment that he said that, I expected to turn the next page and it was just gonna be Dan DiDio at the drawing board like Bugs Bunny in that old Daffy Duck cartoon, just sitting there like, ain't I a stinker? It's like, you know that every single time that Geoff Johns wrote down the script, a dark, evil force that took away all hope from this reality, he just slowly looked up, stared across the office over at Dan DiDio, and Dan just looked up and was like, why are you looking at me like that? When I mentioned I can't believe they got away with that, it was like, okay, either Dan and Bob and Jim are all like, yeah, we know what we did, and they were like, alright, just go ahead and say it. Or they had no idea what the hell he was talking about. Like, they might have looked at this like, oh, okay, so you're talking about the Watchmen, which we'll get to in a minute. It was like, okay, I see, you're talking about Dr. Manhattan in here. And Jeff is just sitting there like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. But aside from the meta commentary, I do have to say, out of all the things that he was mentioning that were lost in this New 52 universe, I do love that he kept bringing up the 10 years. They took 10 years away from us, and here's all the problems that it caused. I love that because if you watched all those preview videos that I made for all the DC Rebirth titles, you know that's been like the #1 thing I've been complaining about. It's that this universe doesn't even make sense if everything has only existed for 5 years. It's that these characters, they don't have the bond with each other. They don't have the experience. They don't have the history that made DC Comics what it was. And I love that Wally was basically saying exactly that. It let me know that Geoff Johns does indeed know the problems with DC Comics. He knows what has been wrong over the past couple of years. That was the #1 thing that stuck out to me. But okay, let's get into the big reveal. Now, I completely avoid all the spoilers, kind of. I was going on Tumblr, and I saw someone make a post in which they said, Guide to DC Reboots. Infinite Crisis, Superboy Prime punches holes in reality. Flashpoint, Flash runs back in time and causes a ripple in reality. And then I just quickly skimmed down, I saw the word Dr. Manhattan, and I went, okay, this is clearly a joke. This is not what is actually happening. This is clearly a joke. So as I was reading it, I did not have that in my mind at all. I was like, it's not gonna be Dr. Manhattan. It's totally not gonna be Dr. Manhattan. No, they wouldn't do that at all. And then when you get to the end and Batman finds the button from Watchmen, I was like, oh my god, they did it. You maniacs. You did it. And the great thing is, this book was smart. There were hints all throughout this issue. Like, the big one to me was the way that Pandora dies. Spoilers for Watchmen. Spoilers for Watchmen. In order to understand everything that I'm about to talk about, you have to have read Watchmen ahead of time. Here we go. But the way that she died, like the panel layout, was exactly the same as when Rorschach died, when Dr. Manhattan killed Rorschach. So it's like, okay, that's a hint, and I didn't even catch that. But also, this whole idea that some dark force came in and altered reality, it now makes Pandora make sense. Like, I just gotta talk about this real quickly, but when Flashpoint happened, Pandora just shows up there at the end out of nowhere, no one even knows who she is, and she helps Flash rewrite reality, and now it's revealed that Pandora was a character who existed in this new reality, and she opened up the box that unleashed the 7 deadly sins all out there to the world and all the evils of man, and it's like, oh my god, that's what happened. It's like Dr. Manhattan came in here as this reality was being recreated, and he came in here and just went, bam, 7 deadly sins. Just gonna put this little Pandora's box in there, and I'm gonna create this character and trick her into opening it just as an experiment. It's like, that makes sense. That makes sense why this reality is so much darker. But let's get into the importance of Watchmen being the villains, and them being the subjects of the next big event that they were all leading to. I know a lot of people out there are going to look at that like, come on man, Watchmen was great on its own, just leave it alone. They're going to look at it the same way that they did when they made the Before Watchmen series, and I can understand it, because Watchmen was great, and it was good on its own, and in a weird way you probably are better off just leaving it on its own. However, that ain't going to happen. So, let's look at the reality that we're faced with, the reality in which DC is like, we're going to use the Watchmen characters. This is actually the perfect thing to do with them. First off, it actually makes a lot of sense for Dr. Manhattan's story. If you go back and look at the end of Watchmen, when he is staying there with Ozymandias, Ozymandias says, so are you done with humans? Are you done with life? And Dr. Manhattan goes, no. In fact, I think I'll go off and create some of my own. It's never the end. And then he just blinks away. He goes out there into another reality. He leaves this universe behind. And he just goes off there and he says, maybe I'll create some of my own. It would make sense that if he went out there into the multiverse and he suddenly saw a new reality being created, he'd be like, let's just tinker around with this, because he was a tinkerer. I don't think that's an actual word. He was somebody who was like, I have the powers of a god. I am omnipotent. Let me see what I can do with that. Let me just tinker around to see what I can figure out about human beings, about existence, about life. It's like, yeah, he sees this universe that is full of hope, so one that is completely the opposite of the universe that he came from, and is like, hope, interesting. Let me just go ahead and tinker with this a little bit. Let me dissect that hope just a little bit. Let me dissect everything that made this universe work. That actually makes sense for his character and for where it left him off at the end of Watchmen. But for anybody out there who is still saying, I don't care if it makes sense, I do not want them to keep using the Watchmen. There is a reason why they need to use the Watchmen as the villains, and especially Dr. Manhattan. I don't even know if any of the other Watchmen characters are going to pop up, but there's a reason why something from that universe needs to be the thing that basically screwed over DC Comics. Because, as I said, DC used to be about hope, it used to be about fun, it used to be about superheroes being superheroes. But, in the late 80s, something happened in comic books that basically came in and said, yeah, that's dumb. We don't want that anymore. It was Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen. Those were the two books that came in and were commentaries on the superhero genre, and basically went, here's all the problems with it, and here's how much better it is when you take that dark, realistic, gritty look at it. And those two books really have been what caused this entire wave and this entire movement of embracing the dark, gritty, realistic take on superheroes. And that was the thing that was the problem with the New 52, is that they took these characters who are all about life and love and fun, and said, let's create the dark, jaded, realistic world version of these characters. Let's create the world in which people don't like superheroes. Let's create the world in which people don't trust any of them. Let's create the world in which even Superman is looked at like, yeah, I don't know about this Superman guy. Dark Knight and Watchmen were those two books that came out and completely changed the way that people look at superheroes. They're the ones that made people look at like all the hope and the love and the life in comic books and go, yeah, that's nice and all, but we want it to be more adult. We want it to be more realistic. We want it to be more like these books. And throughout the course of decades of people being inspired by those books, interpreting those books, trying to alter their books to be more like those books, that is what got us eventually to the New 52, in which they took all the stuff that made DC Comics out of them. And now you have an actual character from one of those books being responsible for coming in and literally ripping out all those things that made those books work. That is why it had to be Dr. Manhattan, because what is happening in the storyline is exactly what happened in the industry. As I said, I know there are people out there who are going to complain about coming in here and taking these characters who really should have been left alone and continuing to use them, but at the same time, the metaphor that this book creates is so spot on that I don't care. If you want to complain, that is totally fine. And like I said, I understand it. This to me was brilliant, and it's exactly what we needed it to be. But okay, there you go, guys. That was my incredibly uneven interpretation of Rebirth. Part of this episode was incredibly well thought out. Part of it was me just geeking out. So I hope that you enjoyed both parts of that. But let me know in the comments down below how you felt about Rebirth. Also, if you like this video, then make sure that you subscribe to see fun, geeky stuff from me every single week. Like I said, every single Wednesday we do cover comic books, but we have other shows in which we cover movies, video games, anything from the world of geekery. And if you like this video, then make sure that you share it all around the web. That is the best way to help out this channel. You guys have been doing it a lot lately, and I really appreciate it. So, again, thank you guys very much, and welcome back, DC. We missed you.